Today I just want to share a thought with you from the book of Habakkuk, a great book about prayer. And I think in these first two verses of chapter 3, we could just sum it up quite easily really by saying this: let your past influence your prayers in the present. What do I mean by that? Well, just let me read these two verses from chapter 3. Habakkuk writes, I have heard all about you, Lord. I am filled with awe by your amazing works. In this time of our deepest need, help us again as you did in years gone by. What Habakkuk's experiencing is that God's people are surrounded by the Babylonians. And earlier on in that book, the Babylonians are described as a cruel, a violent, notoriously cruel nation, actually. And they're going to be invading God's people. They're going to be dragging many people off into exile. It was a really dark time in the history of God's people. And Habakkuk's aware of what's been happening. God's prophesied to him. God's told him what's going to be happening. So he knows what's going to be taking place. But then he begins to pray. It is a really dark and desperate time for the people. And when he begins to pray, he says, I've heard of all that you have done, Lord. I've heard of all the things that you have done. And what he's actually conscious of is that God has stepped into history time and time again and helped God's people through difficulties. And he recognises what has happened in the past. He gives thanks to God for what is done in the past. There's a sense of awe. There's a sense of a reverent fear of God, of all that he's capable of doing. And he's experienced God's faithfulness, he's experienced God being active in the past. And so now at this dark time of the nation, he looks back to all that God did in the past. And what he does is, in the present, when he's praying for this difficult situation that the people are facing, he looks back to the past and says, wow, God was faithful. God delivered us. God did some amazing things. And that is his confidence. That is where his prayer is coming from. So there's a sense of humility, recognizing who God is. There's a sense of praise and adoration because of what God has done. And because of all this, of what happened in the past, he then looks to the present and says, yes, this is a fearful time. This is a difficult time. But actually, God is still the same. He doesn't change. Circumstances might change, situations might change, but God does not change. And so what we find here is that Habakkuk bases his prayers for the present on all this faithful God has done in the past. That's where his confidence is. It's in God. And so when we ourselves are thinking about the dark times in which we live, and we wondering what God's doing and how we will get through this and what will happen afterwards, and etc., etc., God is still the same God. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And when we're praying today, and we need to be praying more and more today in the present for these dark times in which we live, but let's let our prayers for today be influenced by what we've seen and experienced of God in the past. Has God ever failed you? Has God ever let you down? No. God has always been faithful. So why would he be any different? Is he capable of doing great things in the past? Do we celebrate great things he's done in the past? Great acts of deliverance, great healings, great wonderful movements of his spirit. We celebrate that. We thank God for that. But it's still the same God. And even in these dark times, he's still able to do amazing things. So today, when you're praying for these dark times, ask God to help us as he did in the past. In fact, the King James Version speaks about revive us as you did in the past. And that's not actually a bad prayer to be praying for us as a nation, as a town. God, would you bring revival? He's done that in the past. Countless thousands and thousands of people in this nation have come to Christ when revivals broke out. He's done it once, why shouldn't he do it again? Still the same God. So today, when you're praying, in the present, for the dark times, let the past influence your prayers for today. Be blessed and enjoy being in God's presence. God bless you.